Tlos, Spyro, and Cynder versus Nero. I've been thinking of planetary characters having it out, so let's get right to it. The first category we're going to be analyzing is which one? Which one would be good? Lifting strength. Yeah, that would be a good one. In terms of lifting strength, Spyro and Cynder should be planetary due to the fact of what Spyro had to do with his planetary feat at the end of Dawn of the Dragon, when he put a lot of the pieces back together in his own way, which led to a planetary feat, which I think is Class Z on Versus Battles Wiki and Omniversal Battlefield Wiki. Though, can the same be said for Cynder? Because that wasn't really a physical lifting strength feat. That was more so like telekinesis or telepathic. I forget which one it is for the definition. But I'm not sure if Cynder goes into this category unless if you count the fact when Malefor was holding them both together and they kind of weighed back him backwards or somewhere. And he was in he was using his power against them. So that could count in a way that she possibly can do lifting strength in terms of planetary. As for judging Nero's lifting strength, it's a bit hard to tell because you can't really scale Nero's lifting strength from Devil May Cry 4 to Dante with what he can do, because Dante is overall superior to Nero in Devil May Cry 4, and we don't know for sure or exactly if what he was actually lifting in terms of going up against the Savior. How should I put this? At best, it's 100 tons. At lowest, I would say he was building level at low ball. High ball, maybe Universe Plus due to the fact of how the Savior has these types of dimensions in him. There could have been so much explored with what Devil May Cry 4 could have offered if it wasn't rushed. Dadgummit, this should have been clarified more. Why does it have to be so unclarified or so half-assed? Oh, goodness gracious. But back to what I'm saying. At lowest, it's building level. In highball, it could be into that scenario. But with the categories in comparison of it not being fully addressed thanks to the damn rushing, so far it's just building level in terms of lifting strength. In terms of speed and martial arts, the speed for Spyro and Cynder, it varies on a certain category and how they utilize it. I think they're ranked on superhuman. Yeah, their reactions are massively hypersonic due to lightning dodging attacks in some way. And I think they can perform a sub-relativistic to relativistic plus attack power with the Aether Crest because of how much it ranged from other planets. It might even be light speed because from what I calculated, it's really close to it. So it's somewhere around relativistic to relativistic plus, possibly even light speed in terms of energy attacks. As for martial arts, it's, how do I describe this? They don't really have hands, but their performance of martial arts is actually pretty good in terms of, combat. While it may be typical, of how a cat does it, they do other variants, like grab a hold of you, keep on smacking you, kicks and whips with their tails, and other things you wouldn't expect them to do in terms of other martial arts with their kicks. They're not just like every other animal in terms of just clawing and, hitting you with their head or biting you. No, they have different varieties. I remember when Cynder used her wing to do a swipe and all this other stuff because it was really sharp for her wing. So they can do a lot of other things, and I remember also when Cynder was just grabbing a hold of one of the enemies, and she just kept hitting him with her arms, her front arms, very rapidly fast. And as a team, when they perform these martial arts, they're really, 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 really good. They do all these types of combos against their enemies, like of Malifaux. They do all these types of strategies to work together and taking down their enemies in terms of how they utilize their combative skill. So in terms of combat and speed, they're actually pretty good in comparison to Neo's. At least, Nero's. Not Neo, Nero's. In terms of speed for Nero, on Omniversal Battlefield Wiki, he is scaled at sub-relativistic with faster than light reactions and combat speed, kept up with a casual Dante. I'm not sure how this calculation applies. I would like to see more research into this of links to know where this is. So this has me curious into wondering how Neo got to the speed, which I'm not in denial of in the slightest. As for Versus Battles Wiki scaling of his speed, it's at least high hypersonic with massively hypersonic plus speed with combative speed. Faster than DMC3 Dante. I don't know if that's true or not. I know one person probably wouldn't like that, but this is significantly lower than the Omniversal Battlefield Wiki speed, that's for sure. As for martial arts, in terms of combative application, the combative usage, the fighting capabilities, Nero is actually pretty good at what he does. I don't think he's as good as his father or his uncle in terms of martial arts. His uncle is a master of diversity in terms of his own martial arts, and his father can do well with the few combat he can do. Nero only, in terms of like his swordsmanship, I think he only has like one martial arts technique. Not only that, I don't know how. Did he even face against an MLVFG of a duo in DMC4? Like ones that can combat against him that weren't significantly, vastly inferior to his power. I don't remember that in DMC4. And I don't know how. Like a lot of monsters that he's faced usually were more barbaric. Except maybe Credo and a few other exceptions. As for Spyro and Cynder, they were a lot more experienced in what they do in terms of their martial arts, of their combative usage. While Nero, we don't know much beforehand of DMC4 of how experienced he is in this in comparison to them. We don't know an entire lore much. We don't know like if he's been through years of this when we know Spyro and Cynder have been through quite some time with this. So in terms of martial arts, of like fighting capabilities, especially with them together, I think that Spyro and Cynder would do quite well in defeating Nero in terms of just specifically fighting capabilities and nothing else beforehand yet. In terms of like speed, if Omniversal Battlefield Wiki is correct, then Nero is pretty much got this. He wouldn't have much trouble with the Aether Crest, even if it was faster than him. He wouldn't have much difficulty dealing with it. And some of the other speed feats aren't really that much for him to bother. Though it's not to say that Spyro and Cynder would not be able to get him, because Malifaux was able to blitz Spyro and Cynder. Malifaux was like more than 10 times their speed at least, or more than 5 times at least. And Spyro and Cynder managed to beat Malifaux despite the fact that Malifaux was faster, and it is proven. I can prove it. So, overall, in terms of speed, it's kind of inclusive if you go by Versus Battles wikis categorizing a speed. But Omniversal, I suppose Nero wins. But it's inclusive to Versus Battle scaling. In terms of fighting capability, Spyro and Cynder win. Spyro's possessing of abilities is flight, elemental breaths, fire, lightning, ice, earth, time manipulation, light manipulation, and darkness manipulation. Cynder's abilities is poison, fear, wind, and shadow as her breath attacks. Dang it, I thought she didn't have the Aether Crest. I forgot about it. I'm so sorry. Sorry, guys. Very sorry. Very sorry about that. As for Nero, he has fire manipulation, energy manipulation, power absorption, size manipulation, regeneration. Who instantly regenerated from my gut slash while exhausted. Okay. And it's said to be at least low mid. Okay. He has statistics manipulation, energy projection, duration negation. I think that's how you say it. Spatial manipulation, non-physical interaction, and can harm intangible beings, and is resistant to ice manipulation. As you can see, both Spyro and Cynder and Nero have a really good range of abilities in what they obtain in their arsenal or whatever. But the question is, does Spyro and Cynder add up against overwhelming Nero's abilities of arsenal? Honestly, well, the thing is, when it comes to that, and I'm not using regeneration in this category, I'm going to save that for more so how their attack potency is going to affect Nero's durability in terms of the Beowulf description. But in terms of everything else, honestly, they've got a lot going for them, which adds up in comparison to Nero's. And I'm not going to use regeneration because that's going to be saved for more so physique of duration, attack potency, and striking strength in terms of the last category. As for this, honestly, in all seriousness, I'd say it's just about equal. I think it's about even, really. And, I mean, Nero could be resistant to one of Spyro's attacks in terms of ice, but every other attack he might not be so resistant to. So, I'd say it's just fairly equal. Not really much of an argument here. And now for the withstanding and the attack power. Honestly, really now, when it comes to this, while 100 punch can, like 100 hits of planet level can add up to like star level, and it could potentially hurt Nero, I don't know for sure if it's going to be enough to hit it enough with the regeneration speed adding up, booting him back up. I don't know for sure if it's going to be much of an adversary for Nero. I don't know for sure. Like individually, this would probably work for going up against one of them, like Spyro or Cynder. But together with them, with one focused on Nero and the other coming back in like a lineup or a distraction, or all together at once for maybe being too much for Nero to handle, they could potentially strategize him because of his single martial arts and not diversifying. If we do this with DMC3 Dante, this might be too much for them to handle due to his diversity. Like, Dante would be so unpredictable with his moveset that Spyro and Cynder probably couldn't strategize well against it. But as for Nero, there's not much diversity to catch him off guard in terms of the unpredictability set. Though not to say unpredictability is everything, because if you keep just switching and switching and switching and switching, you could be caught off guard over just a single attack of just simplicity. So, I mean, I've heard of that before, where if you don't stay consistent to your attack more often, and you just keep switching over and over and over and over, the guy could just hammer down everything because you're not focused on what you're diversifying. But Dante seems very proficient in what he's doing. But as for Nero, he just uses one attack, and I don't think he's as good in terms of single combat as his father. And I think Spyro and Cynder could strategize this, but the thing is, in terms of combating against someone who's stronger than them, at best, you could say it's Malefor, who was in between 1.5 to 1.99 of the infinite decimal 9 against them. But I don't think that that's going to be enough in terms of beam struggling, except if they keep dodging, evading, and getting lucky, surviving a few hits. They could handle this, but I'm going to leave this up to you. Honestly, I'm just not sure in this category, especially when it comes to regeneration and how fast it can go. Unless if they just keep continuously hitting him, where he's just completely caught off guard. Other than that, Nero probably could win this one.